Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands sort of the purpose of this training. It's really meant for low-level learners. So we're going to talk about how to introduce concepts. So, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that, so that you're not expecting like GED level information, because that's not what this is. So we're talking about like ABE 1 and ABE 2. It may also be appropriate for ESL, for those students that may, again, just be getting used to math concepts, because I know that in some other countries, they may do their math computation a little differently than they do here. So with that said, I am with the Maryland Department of Labor. I have been an ABE instructor, and math was by far my favorite subject to teach. So I am very passionate about the subject. So I want to thank you all for participating and for attending this session. So, I'm going to cover really just 3 areas. One is manipulatives, one is word problems, and then other strategies. And we've had a lot of presentations and workshops lately about online learning and distance learning, and that's great, that's wonderful. But I think sometimes we need to sort of pull it back a little bit and kind of get back to the basics and just remember just how some instruction may be better for some students than others. So we're just going to talk about some real basic manipulatives that students can use. So one is, I love number lines. I love number lines because for some students, it works a whole lot better than tick marks. What I have found is that for some students, when they're ticking off on their paper, that sometimes their hand movement making the tick mark does not align with what they're saying. So, for example, they might have 5 tick marks, but they've only gotten to the number 4, or the other way around. So sometimes a number line can be a little bit more productive because the numbers are already there and they just need to move their hand accordingly. So poker chips. Again, when I taught, we use poker chips for a variety of things. So, you know, this is just a small representative of the things that you can use them for. So if you're working with math problems, with word problems, you can have them representing different people, different objects. You can even use them for place value, for whole number operations with, you know, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. You can also use them for ratios and proportions. So showing, you know, 3 red poker chips, you know, to 5 black poker chips. Again, it's just a way for students to visually see what's going on instead of having to kind of figure it out in their head as to what's going on. So another thing that I found works really well is a deck of cards. So you can use them really simply. Again, we're talking about basics. We're talking about students that are just starting to learn these concepts. And sometimes even the concept of greater than and less than can be a little daunting to some students. So even just having kind of like war, I don't know if you're familiar with war, where you turn over 2 cards and whichever is the higher of the 2 cards, you know, that person takes those 2 cards in that turn. So it can just be 2 students just turning 2 cards over and determining which one is greater and which one is less than. I also like it for patterns. Now, there's some limitation to this, but I just want to show you what happens here. So let's just say we have this. So just put in the chat box, what do you think would come next? Okay, it looks like everybody's got the right idea. Whoops. So yes, it would be the 8 of spades. So we have spades as our suit. So you take the 2 and the 3, you add this together to get 5. So then you take the 3 and the 5, you add them together to get 8. So similarly, if we had this, what do you think would come next? Put it in the chat box. You have to be specific. Okay, looks like you got the right idea. Yes, 8 of hearts, because we have 6, 7, and then we would want to have the 8 of hearts. So what would come after that? And it looks like some of you are already ahead of me, and that's good. Yes, then would come the 5 of clubs. So we're alternating between hearts and clubs. And again, the same thing, this goes in sequential order. So 3, 4, and 5. You can also use it just for sorting, whether it's sorting out the suits, whether it's sorting out the numbers. Again, even you can even use it for face cards. So just any kind of, you can be as creative as you want to be. So I included here the link to 23 math card games, because there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with them. And I didn't want to spend time going through every single one of those. Okay. I included this because I know that some instructors, as they get further on, they like to use algebra tiles. I have never been a real fan of algebra tiles. I think it depends upon how you use them, how you introduce them. But in case it's something that you think that your program might use, it's just something that you might want to consider using at an earlier phase, earlier on. So with these algebra tiles, and I'm going to be honest, I can't remember where I got them from. It was some workshop. But they are color coded, one color on one side and a different color on the other side. So you can use them, again, just can't access the link. I will have to check out the link. And
Ramona, I typed it in. I think we got it.
Oh, you got it? Oh, okay, yep. Great. Thank you. All right. So yeah, you can use these in a variety of ways. Again, so like down here where you have the blue with the red, you can show fractions with 1/4 or 3/4, however you want to show it. You can also use these you can also make them out of cardstock paper and just use them that way for your students. But again, it's just a way to introduce a tool that they might see later on. And if you introduce it earlier, it kind of puts it in a I'll say a non-threatening environment, an environment that's a little easier for them to digest. Okay, so the crux of what I want to talk about is word problems. So I attended a workshop and I found out that there's been a change in the K through 12 system with how word problems are being taught. So let me ask you this. What do you think when you hear the word problem? So write your answer in the chat. Yes, word problems are very difficult for ESL. Absolutely. It will be a problem. Something that needs a solution. I think I saw the word fear. Yes, something that needs to be solved, something to solve, solution needed, intimidating, absolutely. Yes, confusing, something wrong, challenging and shouldn't be rushed through, anxiety provoking, something needing a solution, a puzzle. Okay, great answers. So I'm going to give you the Oxford Dictionary definition. So, oh, I'm sorry. Next question was, what thoughts do you think the word problem creates in our learner's mind? So probably the same thing as what you already put in your chat box. So let me just go through this. And it is, the definition is a matter or situation regarded as unwelcome or harmful and needing to be dealt with and overcome. Well, I can tell you that does not exactly sound like fun. And that sounds like scary. So that's probably what happens with our learners. So let's see if we can't rethink this a little bit. So what word do you think we could use instead of problem? And I have a word that I used to use that I will share, but just want to see what words you come up with. Situation, puzzle, story, math question, math sentence, puzzle, riddle, challenge, okay. All right, well, one of the suggestions was something that I used, and that was, I used to call them word puzzles. Treasure hunt, oh, that's interesting. So again, here's an Oxford Dictionary definition. A game, toy, or problem, unfortunately there's the word problem, designed to test ingenuity and knowledge. But at least that sounds a little bit more fun because we're saying a game or a toy. So let's see what we can do with this. So what is the problem with keywords? And I found out that keywords are no longer being taught in the K through 12 system. Any ideas as to what the problem is with using keywords when we're working through word puzzles? Some have multiple meanings. Yep, intimidating. They can sometimes be misleading. Yep, didn't know there was a problem. Language barrier, absolutely. Maybe not universally applicable. Different people have different interpretations. Absolutely, yes. Context, yes. Not understanding different words can mean different things in different contexts. Students panic if they don't find them easily. Yes. Rhetorical. Okay. How much more than 2 is 11? Yes, it can get very, very confusing. So I'm going to show you so here's what I came up with, is that it relies on memorization of certain words without understanding the concept. And yes, context also. And so a keyword is a keyword only within the right context. So I created this word problem, and I created this by design. So the word problem that I created is, altogether, Randy, Debbie, and Mike have a total of 8 apples. How many apples did Randy, Debbie, and Mike have after giving 3 apples to Tom and Jess? So we have the word altogether which generally means addition, and means addition. Total can mean addition or multiplication. Of can mean multiplication. Giving to usually aren't keywords for subtraction. So students may focus on the first word that they see, which is the word altogether, and the word total. So this can be really confusing for them because there's just too many keywords but they have to be in the right context. So what do we do with this? Well, we can actually draw it out visually so that they can see what is going on conceptually. So I did this like this just because it was the easiest pictures for me to find. So I know it's a little cutesy. So here we have, we're just going to put out our players. We got Randy, Debbie, Mike, Tom, and Jess. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to actually show this visually. We have Randy, Debbie, and Mike, and here are 8 apples. But we're going to take 3 of those apples that they gave away to Tom and Jess and move them down so that they have 3 apples. And now we're going to show that what they have left is 5 apples. I know this is really simple, but I can't stress this enough. And they may sort of balk at this and say, oh my gosh, this is too easy. Start easy. Start easy because you want to make sure that they understand the concept. I see this so often, and I'm sure I have been guilty of it also, of teachers just jumping in with addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division without explaining what's going on so that students understand the concept. If all they're doing is just rushing to do the math, it's going to be very difficult, especially when they get to word puzzles. So another way of doing this, Post-it notes. Same thing. Let's make a column with Randy, Debbie, and Mike. We have a Post-it note to represent each apple. And what we're going to do is we're going to put another column with Tom and Jess. And we're going to physically move 3 of those Post-it notes from where Randy, Debbie, and Mike are to where Tom and Jess are. And now we can visually see that Tom and Jess have 3 apples and Randy, Debbie, and Mike have 5 apples. Okay, we can do the same thing for multiplication. Betty has 3 apples in each bag. She has 4 bags. How many apples does she have? Same thing. Use Post-it notes. Post-it notes, you can buy a whole bunch of them at the dollar store. It's great, and you can reuse them. So, just draw 4 bags and then physically put 3 Post-it notes in each one of those bags. And then they can go back and they can actually physically count how many Post-it notes do I have. Again, it's just for them to understand the concept and to see how it works. Yes, at some point, students do need to learn their multiplication facts, but they also need to understand the concept. They have to know why they're doing what they're doing. See, bingo dots or any other manipulative would work. Absolutely. And that's where like poker chips come in. Candy can be good for adults. Oh, absolutely. In fact, I did a virtual training institute on using M&Ms in math classes. And they love it. Yeah. And then just give them a paper plate. And then afterwards, yes, they can get their sugar fix. Beans, absolutely. Another great tool that you can use because they're reusable. So you don't have to, it doesn't cost you a lot. You just have an initial expense up front, but then you just keep using them over and over again. Yes, great ideas. Thank you for sharing. Same thing with division. Jerry has 12 cookies. I know I'm using a lot of food here. He needs to put 2 cookies in each bag. And how many bags does he need? So same thing, just putting 2 cookies, 2 cookies, 2 cookies. Same thing also with Jerry has 12 cookies and he needs to put 6 in each bag. It even works with if you have a remainder because then they can see, oh my gosh, I have 1 left over. So that can also help them reinforce the idea of a remainder once you get done dividing and you still have something left over. And yes, toothpicks. You can use toothpicks. There are just so many different manipulatives that you can use. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple more drawing a chart. And this concept came from the Number Power 6 book, which is word problems. It's not the exact, but it's the concept. So just drawing a chart. So you have Jeff bought a $349 television. Jeff's television is $127 more than the television that Larry bought. How much was the television Larry bought? So sometimes just writing a chart. Okay, so I got Jeff and I got Larry. I got Jeff, who has $359. And it says that Jeff's television is $127 more. So that means that his is more. So that means that his is less expensive. So yes, so that means that we know that Larry's has to be less than Jeff's. So that can sometimes kind of help them figure out where, kind of in the ballpark where they need to get to. Okay. So this is another similar problem. Sometimes they have these maps where they're saying that they drove from here to here. So this is just a problem. I made it local to Maryland, where they're driving from Columbia to Aberdeen, but they have to make a stop in Ellicott City. So sometimes just drawing out Columbia, Ellicott City, okay, the problem tells me that it's 12 miles from Columbia to Ellicott City. It tells me that it's 40 miles from Ellicott City to Aberdeen. Now I can visually see what's going on in this problem. And I know that I need to add these two numbers together. So just want to ask real question. This could be a good way to pull in a student's own experience. Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I've actually had students do is write their own word problems. And I'm telling you right now, they will come up with word problems that are way more complicated than anyone that I would ever write or that they'll ever find in a book. I mean, they can go to town, but it's really interesting because then they can write sort of stories that are relevant to their own lives. So yes, list numbers needed and any numbers not needed. Absolutely. Yes. Because a lot of times they put in information that's not needed. 10-second drawing of the situation. Yeah. Just say, okay, you know, give you a couple seconds to, you know, sort of draw out what's going on. Students verbalize their math thinking. I have them fold the paper in half. Left is math, right is process wording. That's good, right? I like that because then you've got both, because some do well with one or the other, and some actually kind of need both to tie it all together. Does this answer makes? Oh yes, asking them, does this answer make sense? I would stress to my students at the end of every single word problem, word puzzle, whatever you want to call it, ask yourself, does this answer make sense? Sometimes they can't see it, but more times than not, they will get it. Yes, highlighting, underlining key facts, use food. I use food examples too much. Yeah, but you know, they like food. So, you know, who doesn't like food, right? So, use what works. Okay, I'm running out of time because I'm only a 30-minute workshop. All right, so here are a few other strategies. Oh, KWL, yes. KWL, for those who don't know, the K is for what you already know, W is for what you want to know, and the L is for what you learned. It's a great strategy. So here are just a few other strategies that I've used. So using color, just print different topics on different color. So all and this of course works better for in person, but anything that has to do with addition is going to be on yellow paper, green is subtraction, and so on, just so that they can kind of visually organize and put things together in, yeah, except if they're colorblind. Yeah, that's unfortunately can be a drawback. Just even printing it on different color paper, just to keep it interesting, just to mix it up a little bit. Using highlighters to help with tracking and multiplication. I had a student one time that just could not remember when I if I'm multiplying the right number, do I put it on the first line or on the second line? So sometimes just that highlighting, set it up for them so that they know until they get used to that repetitive motion, and then then it will kind of cement itself in their thinking. And even for place value, make everything that's 100 yellow and so on. Graph papers, yes, graph papers is great for things like decimals and for place value. It really can help keep everything lined up and keep it straight for them. Okay, so get moving. I actually had, this was for a special needs class. So I took pieces of paper, and I took on each piece of paper, I drew a large number, 1, and I think I only went up to about 10. And they would actually, and I laid it down on the floor, and they would actually walk the number line. So they would start on a paper that said start, and let's just say they're doing 2 plus 3. So count to 2, and you can't start counting until your foot goes on to the next piece of paper. So 1, 2, look down. Is it the number 2? Yes, it is. Okay, we're gonna add 3. Now, you can't start counting until your foot moves to the next paper. Count to 3. 1, 2, 3. Look down, what number is it? It's 5. So it's just a way for them to actually get their body moving and to get themselves involved. I actually had a student who didn't want to do it until one of the other students called it a game. And then he, jumped right on board. You can even take like a word problem, word puzzle, and create a skit, embellish it, add in writing to the lesson to help them with, making it into something really fun. They can go as far as they want with it. Manipulating the actual objects and creating a graph. We actually did this where they measured each other's feet, which they loved. And then they created a graph to show the size of how many inches the feet were of the students in the class. We actually also did one where they had to measure around the top, around their head, which they just thought was the funniest thing in the world. And they actually really, really enjoyed that. So I know I am out of time, and gosh, I didn't think this was going to take as long. So just any other ideas that you want to quickly share, put in the chat box, that, things that you've done. I mean, there's no way I could get through all the possible things, but I just kind of wanted this to be a little snippet of just some things that you could easily integrate into your classroom, just some little tips and tricks.
So Ramona, thank you so much. We can totally stay on for a couple more minutes, but just in case someone does need to leave right now, I did put the link for the feedback set survey in the chat. Also, whenever you close this out, it will also give you the option of going to that feedback survey as well. As far as proof of attendance goes, that email will be sent out later. And you only have to request proof of attendance once for all the sessions that you attended. So I want to thank you, Ramona. This was a great session, but also we still can stay on for a couple more minutes. So if you're willing to stay, please feel free to go ahead and continue giving Ramona your ideas that you can share with your colleagues.
Yeah, so I see here we have, Oh, so here you go. There's my email address. There's my work phone, cell phone number. So please, by all means, I'm always happy to talk about math. Anything that has to do with math, you can certainly get in contact with me, and I'll be more than happy to share any ideas, or just to bounce ideas off of each other. So yeah, somebody mentioned that students like to work together, and yeah, they love to work, you know, in groups, and just to share ideas with each other. Again, it's math, I think a lot of times is taught as a very individual subject, where everybody just sort of hunkers down and does their own independent work. But there are lots of ways that you can introduce some group activity and have students working together. Our GED math teacher struggling, whoops. You know, I struggle with how long to make this, so maybe the next time we'll do something a little bit longer, but I didn't know that I didn't feel like I had enough to make it an hour. So yeah, just kind of one of those judgment calls I made. Had students make their own sets of manipulatives out of colored construction paper? Absolutely. Have them make their own. You know, you don't have to do all the work, and they love doing it. Our GED math teacher is struggling with how to put his class online and make it more than just worksheets. These are great ideas. Whoops. Shoot, I can't find it now. Okay, just can be demonstrated to explain. Yeah, it's really, you want to make sure, again, you know, that students aren't just doing it for the sake of doing it, that they're understanding the concepts and what is going on. Okay. It looks like there is nothing else. So thank you, Doug, for your assistance. I appreciate the help.
All right. And there was just one question I put in the answer in the chat. If the feedback for the individual sessions are done one per session, but if you're asking about the proof of participation, you can just wait until after you've completed all of the sessions you're attending and just do one request for the proof of participation. That way we're going to get the same request over and over and over again, and we'll still just send you one proof for all of your sessions. So you can just wait until the end. So, but for the feedback, it is one form for each individual session you attend, because on the feedback form, you choose the session title. For example, this session title is Making Math Come Alive. So you would choose that to give feedback. So once per session for the feedback, but once at the end for your proof of participation. Okay, so you guys have Ramona's contact information, so feel free to reach out to her. Great job, Ramona. I think you caught it, went on for a few hours. I think people would have had plenty to give feedback on, so that's great. So thank you all so much. Make sure that you check out the rest of the schedule if you haven't already signed up for additional workshops. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your participation.